let me introduce, standing, trying to figure out just what the heck's going on there, because we were doing so well. This is Mike Rogers from Granite Rock.
It'll be done in a second.
It'll be done in a second.
We're just restarting the live stream.
Yep. And that's Chris Mader from Meat and Potato Show. He's from the Worcester Tea Party. He is also filming this. Pete and Jemmy, he died, the tech guy on the radio and in the restaurant. He has basically put this event together for us. Matt O'Brien from Worcester Tea Party. Dianna Ploss from ACT. Stacy McCain. Pat Humphreys from the Boston Tea Party. Myself, John Weston, used to be on Right Overnight Radio, and now I'm on the Right Group up in, where are we? Basically all over southern New Hampshire on Tuesday afternoons, 90.7 FM WLMW. And just do it one day a week, but eventually we'll get back on the air. So, Peter, you wanted to start and talk about DACA. Why don't you bring up the conversation?
Get it going.
All right, well, let's start with DACA.
I got a short section.
And of course, we have DACA being the deferred action for minors who are here illegally. And we're seeing an awful lot of pushback from the mainstream media concerning DACA, a program that Barack Obama had said was a temporary measure. And even though it's a temporary measure, apparently the enforcement of this law has driven people wild. Stacy and I were in Harvard, and when we arrived at Harvard to have our time with the college Republicans there was a DACA protest in progress, although I don't know how many of the Harvard students there were taking in illegal immigrants into their home and so forth. So let's go with the panel here, and I want to start with the Worcester Tea Party since you've done so much here. How is it that this law cannot be enforced? An immigration law cannot be enforced, but other laws must be enforced or else you're un-American. For example, you might remember the controversy in Kentucky when a registrar would not register gay marriages. And when that law, when the federal ruling was not being enforced, this was a great tragedy. But now, disobeying the law is chic and wonderful. How can that be?
You see, I see this as an example of a concept called dynamic truth. Law is dynamic now. There are some laws that are valid and some laws that are invalid. Now, I'll tell you that I like the coming, anarchy, where we'll all drive 120 miles an hour and nobody will register their guns, and I'll vote 72 times for president. I'll just drive around different towns and vote. This all seems like a good idea to me because, I'm fairly well prepared for this, being a knuckle-dragging Neanderthal. I think most people, though, depend upon civilization, and civilization has a certain level of compromise. And the compromise is that you give up certain independent actions to conform to the will of your neighbors and to cope with society as a whole. Yeah, that's fine, I guess, if you're not strong enough to beat everybody around you into submission.
And Diane, one of the things that's come up in some of the reporting is that up to 40 to 50% of DACA applicants, as there was a story out today, may be fraudulent. And I can't help but think of the vetting controversy concerning letting in potential Islamists from various countries, where the media took a conniption at the idea of holding immigration for 3 months while we actually vet people. The last administration doesn't seem to want to enforce the law. What is wrong with actually vetting people to see if they actually are properly here and properly even subject to DACA?
For DACA, in general, I don't know that we can vet people because people can lie. So I don't. I know it's not politically correct, but you cannot vet. You can't vet people. In terms of DACA, I also heard that about 72% of these DACA children are on welfare. And so the question I have, and especially for the politicians and the people that are supposed to protect Americans, why are they spending my tax dollars on somebody else? So I don't know if I answered exactly your question, but I think that if somebody wants to come into my house, they either ring the bell, they call me, they knock. I either invite them in, I don't invite them in, and that's the way it should be with immigration.
Now, Stacy McCain, along those lines, we were noticing in Harvard, as we were walking back to the Harvard yard at one point, there was a homeless fellow who was shaking his thing, asking for quarters, and I didn't see any of the people at the DACA protest in a rush to invite him to come into the Harvard University, to set up a tent, to make himself at home. And I can't help but remember when a journalist had come home and found a squatter and had called the police. Yet this same journalist is big into DACA, big into illegal immigration. And how is it that the basic concept that a person should ask to come in be a concept that can't be accepted by our friends on the left?
Well, it's what Thomas Sowell has called the vision of the anointed. Okay, in other words, liberals believe in grand ideas that they want a government that helps people, and so what we would think of as normal charity, you know, that you give $1 to someone, you know, that is in need, they expect to be done through government. Government's going to solve all these problems, and this is the vision of the anointed. The fact that they personally don't have to pay anything for this, okay? The fact that it costs them nothing. All you have to do is vote Democrat, and you can vote your way into heaven. You know, is basically the way this works. And so we're supposed to have sympathy for these people over here, and if you don't agree with our policy, therefore you're guilty of hate. Okay? And to disagree with the modern liberal is hatred. And so that every policy discussion turns into a contest of personal morality, that they're better than you, they're more enlightened than you, they care more than you do, and that makes them your moral and intellectual superior.
All right, Mike, to spin off of that a little bit, you've been talking about how if you do not go along, you are a hater. We've seen, you've been covering a story, you guys at Granite Grok, about one of the chairmen of the New Hampshire Democratic Party having very harsh words for Republicans recruiting voters in New Hampshire, saying that they're trying to register white supremacists. Have we reached the point where if you are a person who opposes DACA, if you are a person who opposes the Democrats, if you are a person who tries to get people to vote Republican, are we, according to the Democrat chair in New Hampshire, white supremacists?
Well, that's what they'd like you to think. Remember, the whole point about the operating method of the Democrats is to delegitimize their opponents and make you afraid to be a Republican, that it's unacceptable to be a Republican. Because there are some people who call themselves rabid right-wingers when they are in fact leftists, then the Democrats somehow make it possible to claim that all Republicans are in fact Nazis. We know, of course, the Nazis are leftists, the KKK are leftists, and yet the Democrats, for convenience and for stigmatization, will want to say that all of us are in fact from the Klan, from the neo-Nazis, and that we are haters. It's in fact exactly the opposite. And it is the Democrats that register voters illegally, not the Republicans. And of course, any attempt to simply make voting irregular is considered an act of hate these days, as the judge in Texas tried to rule.
In fact, it's worth noting that at least one reporter, Sam Stein, did not seem to understand that DACA people could not vote already because they were not citizens. He was commenting, oh, the solution is for these DACA kids to vote against Trump, but not realizing that they could not vote in the first place.
They can't vote. And let me be clear here as an immigrant. I can't vote because I have not yet taken citizenship, but I am legally here. I am a permanent resident, and as such, I am entitled to contribute to campaigns, to work on campaigns, but I cannot vote for the candidates. And I recognize and respect that, and I don't vote even in the town elections. But if there's something I want, I get out and agitate for it. I stand at the polls with the totems. I do what I need to do. I contribute my hard-earned cash. These folks can't vote, shouldn't vote, and they don't even have legal status yet, which means they can't get involved in campaigns and should be deported for trying. And let me be clear too about DACA, deferred action. In other words, we're temporarily allowing you to break the law. The whole point of immigration is to bring in the people that we want. And the way we do that is by vetting them at the source. I was not allowed to set foot on US soil until I had been checked as a good person with no criminal background, that I was employable, that I had an offer of employment, that I had a return plane ticket guaranteed before I could come in. Why is it that we allow these people to cross the southern border or any other border and simply claim asylum and say that they're entitled to stay here because they're human? No, there's humans all over the planet. We're not entitled to just go and stay in their countries.
Right.
You know, and finally, they lie about everything, especially their age. We know that the teenage Islamic refugees invading Europe are 20, 25, 30-year-old warriors, not children. And we don't know about the ages of the Mexicans, Guatemalans, Salvadorians, and others crossing the southern border, except we can bet a lot of the boys claim to be teenagers when they are in fact not. Otherwise, they would be eligible for deportation immediately. I'll stop there.
Now, I want to bring in the Boston Tea Party here, Pat, because we haven't talked about the political angle, and there was a tweet out earlier this week that really struck me, where a conservative activist was saying, if Congress passes DACA without repealing Obamacare, conservative activists are going to be up the wall. And I put up a post saying I would trade the repeal of Obamacare for DACA. Rush Limbaugh has said he would trade DACA for the building of the wall. As a head of the Boston Tea Party, what is the feeling of activists that you have seen on this? Are they willing to make that deal? Are they looking for something else? Or is this a sign non qua? You are not going to let this go through?
People are all over on this. As Limbaugh has been pointing out, you know, it's an issue because it's about children, and that's a tough sell. There's a certain political optics to that. It sounds like oftentimes that people are willing to say, okay, well, we'll deal with the children, maybe let that go, but we need to tighten up immigration in every other area, build the wall, make sure that that all the remaining laws are enforced. One thing about the whole immigration debate and the charges against conservatives, people don't realize that conservatives are individualist primary. We're not racist, sexist, bigot, homophobes. We look at people as individuals. These are people, these are human beings, they need to be treated fairly, but that also means that everybody else gets treated fairly. We would love to be able to offer as many immigrants an opportunity to come into our country, but unfortunately what's happening is as Dianna pointed out, and I've heard this statistic myself, a good 3/4 of them are receiving government benefits. It's not meant with an open safety net that we have. We need to control our borders. When maybe we've got our safety net under control, maybe we can look at letting more people in because we'll have a more prosperous society.
Okay, now John, you've been talking about this on the radio over the last couple of weeks. What is your sense of how the public feels about this from the radio stuff you've done?
I'm going to agree with Pat. I think that there's people all over the place. But one thing, we hear, and oh my goodness, I almost went off the road laughing. There's somebody running for city council in Worcester. Of course, we all know Worcester's background. And that classic Howie Carr line, it's for the children. It's on a lawn sign in Worcester. It's funny. But let's talk about the children for a second. Under the Obama administration, for health care, children are 26 years old. Under DACA, under the Obama administration, children are up to 36 years old. Okay? Now, I guess I can have some compassion if you're an infant, if you're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, used to riding in the back of wagons or undercover and moving around because things are different in different countries. But I think once you, let's say, get into the 10, 11, 12, definitely the teens, you have to know that you're here illegally because you have to take steps to protect your well-being in this country and to not be sought out. And one little comment I'd just like to throw in is, I'm getting so frustrated, even though I'm Catholic myself. I wish these bishops would stick to religion and not to politics.
Amen.
This new movement, and it comes, I believe, from the Pope down, and the bishops are out there. Oh, we have to support, we need to support these people. No, we don't. What I want to do is I want to go to church tomorrow, and I want to ask one of these bishops and say, well, excuse me, the Ten Commandments, right? Huh? Yeah, the Ten Commandments. Well, which one of those can I just break all the time, and you guys are going to say, oh, it's okay? I just want to know, because if it's okay to come into this country, commit a felony, and to continue to commit the felony, and lie and be undercover and underground.
And don't forget documents that have to be forged.
Exactly. So I want to know which one of the 10 Commandments that we can now just like not pay attention to anymore. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to go through the panel very quickly. I know you had a comment you want to make. I'm gonna throw a question out there. I want you to make your comment first, and then I'm gonna throw a question for everybody before we move to the next topic. Go ahead.
Just remember that it's for the children. So when I rob the bank and I give all that money that I stole to my son, you guys aren't allowed to take it from him because it's for the children. All right? And the fact that I had to shoot somebody to steal it doesn't matter. It's for the children. I gave it to my son. It's not my money, it's my son's money. So that's the way this should work. Any parent will do that. Any parent would be more than happy to sacrifice themselves, go to jail, to provide better for their children. We do that, we call that jobs, we call that fatherhood. This is a terrible, terrible idea. Of course one wants to be passionate, of course one wants to have more Americans. I believe we need 800 million Americans, and honestly, I'm not exactly sure how we're going to get it if we don't fix our immigration group. But I want them to come here and be Americans. I want them to come here and strive to be the best they can.
Okay, the questions for the panel. I'm going to start with John and move back this way. Does DACA pass, and do conservatives get anything for it, or does it just pass before the end of the year? John.
By my way of thinking, they better pass it, but I doubt they're going to pass it. And if it does pass, no, the conservatives aren't going to get any credit for it.
Okay.
I think there's a possibility that's going to pass because of the optics that Donald Trump is putting out there, unfortunately, and also he agrees with the Republican leadership on that. On the flip side, we darn well better get something for it. I'm hoping that is, if Trump is leading that effort, that he will do the deal and say wall, border controls, ICE strengthened, ad infinitum, all of that. But will it actually happen?
Yeah, I'm afraid it'll pass and probably get nothing. It's one thing to be compassionate for actual children, but a lot of these aren't. But the most important thing here is they broke the law. Their parents broke the law. We're not splitting up families if we deport the whole family. And perhaps that's what we should do. And does it pass? Probably. Do we get anything for it? Nothing but blame. And if that happens, this will be at least the third Republican president that I know of that got fooled into, give us an adjustment to immigration to make it easier and we'll give you better border controls. It's a bit like saying, give us a small tax increase, we'll give you 3 times as much in government savings. Where have I heard that before?
Stacy.
I believe that in exchange for DACA, Republicans will be happy to walk away with magic beans, just like Jack and the Beanstalk, you know. This idea that amnesty is going to be, which is what DACA is about. Amnesty is going to precede enforcement. Well, that's insane. It has never happened. Ronald Reagan got bullied in 1986 into granting an amnesty, and they said, well, this is it. This is going to square things up. They come back under Bush, Bush the first. Another amnesty. John McCain has been pushing amnesty for over a decade now, and so. The thing is that as long as you keep giving amnesty to illegals, illegals will keep coming. You know, it's like
it's having a picnic and expecting the ants not to show up. You know?
Diane.
So I want to say, when are we going to start thinking about ourselves? One of my father's prescriptions last year went from $8 a month to $44 a month. That's just one prescription. And we have to know that it's because we're spending money on illegals and refugees. But I digress. It won't pass.
It won't pass.
And Ryan is his life expectancy is shorter than I think he thinks.
As speaker, you mean?
Yes.
Okay, Matt.
You haven't found a leftist to do away with it, man. You just think he'll be booted out of office.
Okay, first off, I believe DACA passes. Second, I believe that we don't get either the wall or a real substantive improvement. But on the larger scale, I think that we are one step closer to whoever it is that replaces Trump and makes Trump seem like that quaint old Republican, like, Gerald Ford. When this new guy or gal comes and becomes president and is even crazier than Donald Trump, we'll have to come back to this moment and realize this is when that campaign started.
I'm going to predict that
Hang on. In March of 2018,
This is Chris speaking, by the way.
March of 2018, DACA is already been set to expire. Think about this for a second. Who was the supposed and imagined proposed president supposed to be come March 2018?
Hillary Clinton.
In full fanfare, press conference, the DACA children standing behind her as she signs that document. This is all blown up. But what Donald Trump has done is he literally took this and he told Congress, you got 6 months. Guess what? 6 months, March 2018. It's already expired. Make a decision. Yet this is the problem, is everybody is blaming Donald Trump. This thing has already been, it's already been adjudicated, it's already been signed years ago. These kids are not kids anymore. You guys were all talking about some of them grown up, this, that, the other thing. I think there's something like, out of the 800,000, there's 3,000 plus or minus have actual criminal records, if some of them aren't gang members, that kind of thing. So in March 2018, this thing expires. Congress has to decide on an already unconstitutional document signed by our former president. So how do we reconcile Congress passing a law on an unconstitutional thing to begin with?
Can I say one more thing? I just want to
Go ahead, Nancy.
When Chris said kids, so I was thinking of Congress as the kids, because no, seriously, think about this, because they've had decades and decades of getting away with bad behavior, not following through, not working, not having any accountability. And so now Daddy, President Trump, tells them, kids, you have 6 months. Now, the kids, we know from their past behavior that they're not going to be able to pull it off. They are not going to be able to pull this off. And they're saying, is Daddy really serious? Is he really serious? That's what I'm telling you, this is what's happening. It's not going to pass.
All right. It is my opinion that it will pass. It's my opinion that it will pass with a combination of Democratic votes and liberal Republicans. It is my opinion that while officially President Trump will get nothing but just a little bit of praise, because normally Republicans get the blame and Democrats get the praise. He's set himself up to get praise for this, and the question is, will the media want to give him praise? That's why it may or may not pass, or they may want to put it down on him. But one thing that people are missing is that the wall has been moving forward slowly, quietly, with bids out and so forth already.
That's true.
And there may be the perception that we've got something for it, even though all we're getting is something that Trump is already doing, which might, I think it's all going to be about the optics and how those optics play. But I think Congress ends up doing something. I think it's going to divide conservatives. I think there's going to be trouble about it. The real question is going to be, how will the media spin it? All right, our next issue is free speech, Antifa, and so forth. And I want to start with you, Dianne, because this is really the reason. For those of you watching at home or watching the stream who don't know, Dianne was not originally going to be part of this panel. I met Dianne for the first time last month at the Friday morning group. She was announcing an event, and I had interviewed her afterwards, and I thought it was a shame because it was going to conflict with ours. Act for America, of which she is the Boston chapter president, was going to have rallies all over the country. And those rallies were canceled because of what's happened in Boston, what's happened elsewhere, because as a question of safety. And I wanted you to speak on this first, because we were outraged over here, so we made it a point to invite you, because, you know, no, we're not going to have ACT silence. We like ACT over here, so we're very proud that you came to join us. Is this an example of, although it's not specifically feminism, is this part of the totalitarian movement to destroy civilization as we know it?
Yes. 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 So for those of you who don't know, so they say that I'm the Boston chapter leader, but basically all of Massachusetts except for the Cape. That's our team. So all of Massachusetts except for the Cape. If you're here and you can take a card from me, I'd like you to do that because I just took over. And so what we're doing is we're starting a weekly conference call, because if you're in charge of all of Massachusetts, it makes it very difficult to have meetings. And we're doing it every Sunday night at 7. We start promptly at 7. And we end promptly at 7:50. That's the therapy hour. That's why we did it that way. So if you're interested, and we're doing it every week because not everybody can come join us every week. You'll get information, you can join, you can call in. If you don't have time, call in the next week. So that's happening. And for those of you who don't know, ACT is a grassroots organization. It's the largest national security grassroots organization in the United States. Right now there are over 750,000 people who have joined ACT, and half of that membership has come within the last maybe year and a half.
Really?
Yes, so that's pretty exciting. President Trump and Brigitte Gabriel, who's the founder of Act for America, they have a relationship, not a relationship, but a relationship. They talk to one another.
Did you say Brigitte?
Gabrielle.
Gabrielle Brigitte.
The author of she's got a book.
Yes.
What's the name of the book?
Because
they hate. That's the best book about radical.
There you go.
Yeah, okay.
And then there's a conference. ACT has a conference every year, and I'll be down there. It's October 1st and the 2nd. Maybe I'll see you down there.
So I bet you're friends with Pamela Geller.
I have not met her, but I know of her.
Stacy and I are both friends with Pamela Geller and Robert Spencer.
So I've met Robert Spencer, but
yep.
But what I want to say is that I was at that rally. Now, I went to the rally, and normally when I go to an event, I invite a lot of people to go. Specifically this time, I didn't want to bring anybody else, because having grown up in Roxbury, you can smell what's going to happen a mile away. So I went by myself, but I met a friend of mine who was an Army Ranger down there, and I wanted to see what was happening, and I can just tell you that murderous rage was in the air, and that's not an exaggeration. These people, I wasn't up near the stage at all. In this crowd of, they said almost 40,000 people. Many people in this group they were looking to fight. They were looking to hurt people. My friend Paul made the mistake of making a comment when something was happening, and this throng of people moved in on him. I stepped away because I knew that it was going to hit the fan. He still talks about it. He said that he thought he was going to die, and that he has never been so afraid of dying in his life. That he thought that he could take a couple with him, but that he was going. Like this was the end of his life. It was so scary. I'm not done with Charlie Baker, and I'm not done with Marty Walsh, because that day, they could have said, if they were real men, if they were real men and real leaders, they could have said, listen folks, we might not like what these people have to say, but I took an oath to uphold the Constitution.
Right.
I took an oath to support the First Amendment.
Right.
And they didn't do that. And so if there was a snowball's chance in hell that I would ever vote for Charlie Baker again, like, and it was a snowball's chance in hell, it's gone. Like, it's completely gone. And I'm not done with calling these people out for what they did that day on the Boston Common. This is where it all began. The mayor of Boston.
Okay, I want to jump. Oh, jump.
Anyway.
I want to ask Dianna, because I know Ray-Hannah very well, and I orchestrated a meeting for Brigitte Gabriel at Indian Meadows Country Club in Westboro a number of years back.
I was at that meeting.
Yes, you were. And the thing that I'm finding amazing about this story, when it came down from the Home Office, better way of putting it, was to say that they felt it was too dangerous and there were death threats. Yet this is a woman who's had, how many fatwas? I mean, countless, she travels with at least a team of 8 security people all the time. Her house is like, got a moat around it, and she's got like 20 security people. And I don't mean some like guy 6 feet tall, 500 pounds that, has a cap gun. I'm talking about people with body armor, assault weapons, blacked out bulletproof Suburbans.
But people like me don't have that.
I understand
so
that.
So that's, and I
right.
should have said that. I'm sorry to interrupt you. What I should have told you is the email that I got said that there were credible death threats for people at the rally, which we took to be people like me, who would have been the MC of the event.
Yep.
And so she, as the leader, it was terrible that they had to cancel.
Right. The reason I bring this up is if you don't know who she is, you need to read up on her.
She has a lot of courage. That's what you're right.
And what she went through as a teenager, literally in a foxhole for what, like a year and a half?
No, 7 years.
It was 7 years.
Age 10
Okay.
to 17.
Got shot a number of times, crawling for water. This woman does not scare easily.
No.
So for her to call up her groups and say, hey, we're worried about you, that has to be pretty serious, and that's
Yes.
the reason that I emphasize this so much.
Yes, no, you're right. You're right. And I was afraid before the rally got canceled. To be honest with you, I was afraid, but I was still going to do it. And so when she canceled it, I was a little relieved because I thought, something bad could have happened that day.
Okay, Matt. Now you're the Worcester Tea Party. Obviously, you're a Tea Party in the president of Worcester Tea Party. You're a Tea Party in one of the bluest cities in New England, let alone Massachusetts.
We're pretty purple now.
Okay. Now,
we refer to ourselves as part of the beating red heart of the Commonwealth.
Now, do you feel that same? Do you get that pressure to self-censor, and do you see the media playing along with this? For example, we were talking about this event itself. We sent out our press releases to all kinds of papers, and I mean, Stacy McCain is a nationally known reporter, award-winning reporter, and the papers weren't interested. And it was very interesting that they did not want to talk about this event.
No, first off, they want to ignore us. They want to ignore us. They want to pretend that we don't exist. You might notice that I have written on my little yellow band, Free Stacy McCain, because I was part of the cadre of people that attempted to get Mr. McCain reinstated on Twitter. We failed on that. Look, I am more than used to pushing this rock up the hill and trying to get my voice out as to be heard in the marketplace of ideas. And frankly, I've kind of gotten used to the fact that I'm always going to be punching up, that they're always going to have better meteor sauces, they're going to have more better, more money, more anything. But the simple truth is I have the ultimate weapon. I have the truth on my side. And with that being said, how can I possibly lose? I mean, I am eager for this. I really believe that people can only be told that when a politician is peeing on their back that it's raining for so long before they finally wake up.
Okay, Stacy, going to you. You're banning from Twitter, and there was a lot of this just before the election. It was almost as if they were trying to silence effective conservative voices. before the election, and you were banned and for doing the unthinkable, which is taking feminism and quoting it in its own words and quoting people in their own words. So was this a precursor of what we're seeing now?
Well, here's the thing, is that I don't know why I was banned. You know, previously, a couple of times previously, I had, 24-hour suspensions where they send you a note and say, delete this tweet and so forth like that. This just, zoom, came down, permanent, and I write back to them, hey, what's going, no, you're permanently suspended for participating in targeted abuse. They didn't tell me who was targeted, they didn't tell me how they were abused or how I was supposed to have participated. What goes on is that the people who complain the most, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Okay, now let me tell you that the 2 previous times that I had been temporarily suspended, you know who it was?
Neil Rauhauser?
No.
That was a good guess, though.
No. It was a transgender person who has been accused of pedophilia. Okay,
I know the name, I can't remember. I know
you know exactly who I'm talking about.
I can't place the name.
And here's the thing, is that people had been telling me, you remember when Charles Johnson, the other Charles Johnson of Got News.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. When he was banned, okay, now this was supposedly because he had doxed Jackie Coakley. Supposedly he had doxed Jackie Coakley, who was the liar who created the hoax.
Could you explain what doxing is for those who might be watching and don't know?
Doxing is when you publish personal information, including addresses or phone numbers or things like that.
It's considered unacceptable unless threatened by CNN, of course.
Well, anyways, but doxing, to take a private citizen and expose them, and and this is done. The hackers did it to me. I was swatted. I was targeted by swatting, and people went to federal prison because of my swatting and the swatting of others. They also swatted Wayne LaPierre of the NRA. They swatted Congressman Mike Rogers. Is that who it is from Michigan? Anyways, and so
Not me.
yeah, and so this was real terrorism that was real intimidating, and so this the question of what did Charles Johnson do that got him banned, kind of raised questions, but nobody could point to anything, that I had done that was anything like that, and it was probably this transgender person. Because I used their actual name, in a tweet. Well, that's a hate crime now. It's thought crime, And we're living in this Orwellian world where ISIS supporting accounts are all over Twitter, right? But me, I just, happen to use the actual name of a transgender pedophile, allegedly. A pedophile, and and for that, I'm shut down, and it was in February of an election year. Okay, I'm a journalist. I've had this account since 2009. I've got had tens of thousands of followers.
88,000 at the time, as I recall.
Yeah, and I was unceremoniously banned, and this was written about everywhere. Well, later on, Milo Yiannopoulos, and other people, I just showed you in the slideshow there that a woman was banned for criticizing Teen Vogue promoting anal sex to young girls. I mean, it's cloud cuckoo land. We're through the looking glass, down the rabbit hole. The world is turned upside down and crazy. And the bad people can do anything they want with blue check marks behind their names. And you know, people who try to fight back against that, people who try to give the other side of the argument, are being shut down and shut down and shut down.
Okay, Mike, we've seen stuff like this in Europe and in England
Yes.
against various things, against the Brexit people, against Pam Geller, for example, and Robert Spencer, friends of mine, are not allowed in England, which I think is a disgrace, which is one of the reasons why I have no interest in going.
I can't believe that the left wing of the British Parliament were able to push through bans on people like Michael Savage and Pamela Geller and Robert Spencer. But not only that, our social media is colluding in the promotion of the left-wing governing party in Germany. They have deleted thousands of Facebook and Twitter accounts of people who oppose Angela Merkel and her free-running immigration.
And I want to get the Boston Tea Party in here. Pat, do you expect to be the victim of this kind of thing anytime soon? Or have you already been? Because you were in Boston. I saw it running into each other there.
Right. I was not the victim of it. I had actually gone to the Boston Free Speech rally, which turned into the hate rally from the hateful left. I've been pushed around in the past. It's happened physically. Not looking for it to happen again, but I think in today's political climate, it absolutely could happen. What I saw in the Boston rally, it was complete insanity, as Diane indicated. People were attacking people. They were, and the free speech people, quote unquote, had left by like 12:45 or 1 o'clock. The 3 or 4 hours after that, they were just running and rioting, and it turned into a Black Lives Matter rally.
And I want to mention two things very quickly. I was there. There's a lot of videos. There's a whole playlist of videos. But at the Friday morning group, I interviewed an Indian doctor who had been at that gazebo, one of these dangerous white supremacists and so forth. But I urge you to look at the video of a man wearing a Trump banner and a man wearing an Israeli Star of David who were being mobbed, being called racist and fascists, and basically they had to hold people back from beating them because it was so early in the day there were enough regular people who, if they had seen them being beaten, would be an issue. So, does this blow up? I want to go very quickly through the panel. Does this blow up for the left? Because we've seen Nancy Pelosi, for example, condemn Antifa. Is it going to blow up for them? And if so, when?
I think it has, slowly but surely. Unfortunately, it's going to have to get to the point where somebody's going to have to die, I think. It's sad, but it's going to have to reach that level. They haven't openly denounced it. The mayor of Boston, etc., they didn't. It's sad, but sooner or later it will happen.
Mike, does it blow up for the left, and will there be lives that it costs first?
I think it's going to cost lives first. It's blowing up for the left. People are turning against the left, but Antifa and all leftist-sponsored organizations are violent thugs. These are the fascists, the Nazis, the socialists, whatever you want to call them, and they are determined to turn society over. And it will either degenerate into war, or they will eventually lose, but people will die.
Stacy. Oh.
Just got to take a camera break. Ready? 4, 3,
2,
1. And we are back from our little non-commercial interruption over here. And back, I believe we were talking to you, Stacy, to let you finish that thought. Does this end, and does it end in violence? What does this backfire on the left?
Well,
this is talking about Antifa and all of this fascism that's going on.
I think that Mike has made the point that the optics of it have already cost. The Democrats have started to realize the liability of having these masked mobs, attacking people at free speech rallies. So I think we can see some pullback, but if you go and think about the Black Lives Matter movement, there's a great book by Heather McDonald called The War on Cops. Okay, and people are going to be killed as a result of this increasing divisiveness. It's the hate coming out of the left right now. And I showed some of the images of the crazy women that were out there on the mall for the March on Washington. Well, if the women are that crazy, how crazy are the men? You know, and I think that these, you know, the crazy people do crazy things. And what happened at Charlottesville, it may not have been predictable, but sooner or later, yeah, there's going to be violence.
And Diana, how does this end? And let's not forget that there already was violence from a Bernie bro trying to shoot down Republican congressmen, and for some reason, you never hear the name of the person, you never hear Alexandria mentioned whenever our friends on the left bring this up and say, oh, there's been a life loss. So I said, nobody seems to remember Mr. Hodgkins. In fact, I would wager most people do not even remember his name.
I think it's very subtle, but people don't realize that we are actually in World War III. We are. No, we are. This is not a joke. We are. Except for the bombs are coming not from the sky, but they're coming from our rights being taken away. And I firmly believe that many, many people are going to die. I do. Many, many people are going to die before this is over. People will start to wake up once that happens, and who knows, maybe in 50, 100 years we'll go back and you know, have something like the traditional family and some you know, stable social structures, and maybe, you know, religion will be okay. But yeah, that's how I see it.
Okay, John, I believe I skipped over you before, so let's go back to you before we get to...
I don't need to. Okay. I just, what I wanted to comment on is basically Charlottesville. The thing that I find, and what Stacy brought up about how there are people, male and female, living on the edge, and we do not know what leaf falls off what tree that triggers that branch to break, that tree to split. And that is not a disease that is only to the progressives and the left. It's also, there's a lot of conservatives that are living on the edge, okay? I can think of a few. I won't go in there, but anyway. The reason I wanted to bring up Charlottesville is that, isn't that amazing? Do you know whose congressional district that was? Hillary's running mate. Mr. McCain.
Well, he's a senator, so the whole state is his district.
Yeah, well, Congress. Yeah, you know, to me it's all the same soup, you know. But my point is, isn't it interesting that there was enough spin, enough turbulence, enough tornado, if it will be, enough wind blowing around to find that one person that just acted like Popeye and I just can't stand it anymore, and then snaps. And I really have to wonder if that was by design. Because, Peter, I go back to the time that you and I were in Lincoln Square in Worcester, and you were interviewing me, and we were talking about the black hoodie movement with the faces covered.
Yeah, that was several years ago.
More than several years ago.
Stand Up to Stupid, it was called then.
And they were running into cars. If you gave a thumbs up to the conservative rally that was going on, or you blew your horn in favor, these people were running into traffic with cans of silly string and spraying it all over windshields and faces of the drivers. And I'll never forget that I had gone for a job interview, and I won't say where because it doesn't really matter. And they brought up the fact of, well, we watched you on YouTube, and you were being interviewed by somebody, and it was obvious that you and the interviewer had orchestrated what was going on behind you.
Excuse me?
And I said, you know something? I'm not destitute. I don't think Peter is, but we're certainly not made of money. And you know, you're absolutely right. We hired about 15,000 extras, about 300 or 400 motor vehicles, all converge, and we paid for them. And then we found these wacko people to dress up with hoods and things and silly string, and to really try to start riots within the cars going by. Granted, we did that, and I have to admit that. I mean, I already knew what was getting the job that was brought up.
This is what's called projection by the left. Yeah. Matt, does this end, and how does it end?
First off, Stacy said something earlier that was incorrect, and I think it's only because he's so much younger than me and he doesn't remember how it was done back in the old days. Mastodons aren't that hard to kill. The key is you wake them up in the middle of the night, and normally my people, we would, you know, get up like, 2 o'clock in the morning, go out to where the mastodons were sleeping, and then we'd yell real loud. That's why I project. I speak from the diaphragm. It's called mastodon hunting. The mastodons wake up, they're scared, they don't know what's going on, they start to run, and they normally trample one another. And then we have dinner or breakfast. It's pretty easy, and it really doesn't require a lot of physical force, just projection from the diaphragm. That's kind of the politics that's being played on us. We are being startled by these ugly images, by these people in masks, by these crazy ideas that the left is throwing at us to distract us from the real challenges to our nation. 36-year-olds are not children. A man in a dress is not a woman. There are real things, but there are real problems. Now, we haven't really spoken about that little guy over in North Korea that now has intercontinental ballistic weapons and nuclear bombs to put on top of them. I really don't think that the Antifa and these children, and I've confronted them personally, physically, are what we need to worry about. I think that if we're going to be talking about dire predictions, we need to be talking about much more serious issues.
All right, I've got 3 things to say on this. First of all, I think Antifa is used as useful idiots because the media and the left want another Kent State. They want a Kent State, they want... The reason why Alexandria was so important is because Alexandria happened, the attempted murder of Republican congressmen, the body was necessary from the right. The left needed Charlottesville, and they are still looking for their modern Kent State. But I think it's going to fail, and I think it's going to turn around without much more violence because of the DaTechGuy's second law of media outrage, which states that the tolerance of any movement, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it in front of me, but the tolerance of any action is directly proportional to its ability to help elect Democrats. As soon as it became clear that the images of Antifa, the images out of Boston, which while not making it into media, was shared widely on Facebook. I got more comments on my Boston stuff than I've seen in a long time. The images out of Berkeley, there was no way to sugarcoat it, where you actually even had the point where the SPLC was saying, you know, this violence isn't cool. Because it is now an electoral problem for Democrats, you will see it calm down, and you will see some cracking down because of it, and you will see it without a whole lot more violence because it is not in their interest. So I am actually very optimistic that we may have already won this fight, but we just don't see it yet because the other side doesn't want that fight. Now, speaking of things to win, we got one more topic I want to bring up, and there's been, in my opinion, and I'm going to start with you, John, a race between the GOP and the Democratic Party to see which group can alienate more voters. The Democrats have been rushing to either alienate parts of their base or alienate the general public. The GOP has been rushing to alienate their base. And of course the media is trying to have them alienate others, but the media, that's always been the same. Given what we've seen from the Democrats, and given what we've seen from the Republicans, are they both trying to lose, and which one will lose worse in 2018 as they race to alienate voters?
I don't think they really care about the voters, and I don't even think that they realize that they're alienating voters. I think the reason that the Republicans are doing what they're doing right now, example, right here in this state, and in the federal government, is because in the federal government, they were in second place for a long time. Now they're in first place, but they're scared. Well, we really don't know what to do with first place because the other guys have had it for so long, and they really do run the government and they still control it. But, oh my goodness, I don't want to lose my job. I like my benefits. I like my Cadillac health care. I like all the bennies that I get. I like being here for 2 terms and basically get paid for the rest of my life. That's what I think is really going on here. I don't think the Republicans, in all honesty, I can't think of one at the top of my head that if I could vote for them again, I mean, I'd really have to look at them. I think every single one of them on both sides of the street are just out for themselves. They really don't care about the public, and all they want to do is cover their fat behinds and get as many things as they possibly can. You know, one little example that's, I just saw this. They're still picking on Donald Trump because His wife comes out of the airplane in high heels.
Big deal.
Big deal. She had sneakers on when she got down there. Except, let's go back to the last big hurricane, folks. What was Obama doing? You remember?
Golfing, as I recall.
He was on Martha's Vineyard on vacation. And he couldn't get his behind off of Martha's Vineyard to go visit people of his own color, let alone any color, and go down and see how they were doing, and to offer support of the federal government.
Sure.
Trump showed up twice, okay, with basically his whole family in a shorter period of time than it took Obama to get there the first time, and plus, Trump wrote a check for $1 million. Do we forget that? Because that hardly made the media. So that's why I say, I think it's really, I just think it's both parties and all the electoral CYA. I just want to keep getting fatter. And it's interesting, I don't know if you realize or not, but thank you. The Obamas are so happy. They just bought their 5th home after leaving the White House this week.
They get around. Pat, I mean, obviously here in Massachusetts, it's a very lean time in general for us. It's always a lean time for conservatives in Massachusetts. But the race to the bottom, I mean, who is actually trying to win an election now?
Well,
Shiva.
First off, the Democrats are going to be just fine. Don't worry about them. They're going to take care of themselves. They don't do the circular firing squads. They have internal squabbles. They'll buy Bernie off when he makes waves. Debbie Wasserman Schultz will go away for a while and do her Jar Jar Binks routine. They'll always come together in the end, and they're always going to have the media there to back them up, to keep it quiet, their problems. On the other hand, the Republicans, it's a complete and total war between the leadership, the Republican establishment, and the grassroots. And there's a circular firing squad that goes on forever. The question is, are they going to be able to unite for a common purpose to try to essentially save the country from the socialism that the Democrats are attempting to impose upon us? That is the huge question. And I think because money is still exceptionally important in politics, and you still see the Republican establishment putting up the big money people, what turns people out, you can have all the money in the world, which means you can do all the paid media, but the free media, the social media, is being done by the grassroots. And that's where, the grassroots are the feet on the ground. In this state, that's what's going to have to happen, is that the grassroots are going to have to rule. I think there's some hope for that. But still, we're still having to deal with the Republicans of Massachusetts. Let's see, superdelegates. We just doubled the number of superdelegates in Massachusetts. So that we could, in the Republican Party, yes. Let's take a bad Democrat idea and see if we can screw it up even more. I mean, so the establishment is still going to be doing what they're going to be doing. The question is, will they get the message from the grassroots, who are the real feet on the ground, the people that are putting the real people out there, and will they be successful? That is yet to be seen. I certainly hope so, because we are out amongst the grassroots. We are the grassroots. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of turning things around in this state. It's going to be a tough fight in 2018.
Okay, Mike, you've seen a lot of this in New Hampshire over the years between the Rhino Republicans and the conservative Republicans and the cooperation with the Democrats. Has this become the New Hampshire phenomenon becoming the national phenomenon? Everyone trying to lose at once, or do they even realize that they're alienating voters? Does either side understand they're doing it?
I don't think they do. If they had realized they were alienating voters, we'd still have Senator Kelly Ayotte. Heck, we still have Senator John E. Sununu. If they had realized they were alienating voters. They've been doing it for a long time. The grassroots is at pitch battle with the Republican leadership. And Trump is the one different animal out there, and maybe a few odd people like Ted Cruz. So, my prediction is Trump gets re-elected in 2018 if they haven't found some way to lock him up. Sorry, in 2020, but the Republicans don't necessarily keep their majority. I'm going to jump around a bit. Something Diana said that was particularly interesting, about whether we turn society around. Maybe it's not Antifa, maybe it's not that civil war, but as long as we keep on losing our rights and we aren't able to arrest the rot, if we aren't able to stop the feminazis, the just plain Nazis, which is what the thugs on the left really are, stop them from eroding our civil rights and turning ourselves basically into a police state under martial law as the only way to retain order, the lights are out, folks. America is the only beacon left in the world. The Cubans, the Russians, the others that come here tell us so. I'm telling you so as well. If we lose what the Constitution supposedly guarantees, we are in for 1,000 years of darkness. It doesn't come back in 50 years. We have to stop it, and we have to stop it now.
Okay, Stacy McCain, you're based in Maryland, you're near D.C. You see these guys more than any of us here. Are they so, and I mean both sides, are they so deep in the bubble that they do not see what they're doing, or are they more interested in the consulting jobs, in the paid jobs after they get out of office, or the power? What exactly is going on with these people?
Pete, I want to tell you a story about 2009. 2009, you will recall that the National Republican Senatorial Committee chairman, John Cornyn, came out jointly with the chairman of the Florida Republican Party and endorsed Charlie Crist in the Republican primary for 2010, 15 months ahead of the primary. And we were stunned. What is this about? Here is Marco Rubio. For years, okay, Republicans have been saying we need to, reach out to the Latino voter. Here's this young, charismatic, Cuban American, with a great story, very well spoken, and they went with Charlie Crist, the orange, guy, and it was like, I remember going to a cocktail reception that after that had come out. I was enraged, and I ran into a Republican consultant I know, and I was like, what the hell are they thinking? This is just enraged the grassroots. And he said, Stacy, they want their chairmanships back. That's simple. To be the chairman of the committee, okay, you get all that staff, you've got all that. It is so much more better to be the chairmanship than the ranking member. John McCain, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell. Oh, Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader. What has he done? Nothing. He did nothing when Obama was in the White House. He's done nothing since Trump's been elected. If you want nothing, vote Republican. I guess that's their campaign for 2018. And it is furious because you talked about how the Democrats, they're with their voters. Their voters may be crazy, their voters may be criminal, but they go with their voters. They are where their voters are. Republicans have made it pretty doggone clear where we stand on immigration. But John McCain, well, we can't vote for that, we can't vote for this, we can't do this, we can't do that. Yeah, there may be violence. I think some Republican, some Republican may just finally lose it and attack the Republicans, because there are worse enemies. Republican senators are the worst enemies of conservatives in America. Excuse me if I got a little excited.
Well, I want to say 4 words in rebuttal, and it's only a tiny rebuttal. Merrick Garland and Neil Gorsuch. I got to give McConnell that. If McConnell does not stop Merrick Garland,
Yeah.
then the history has changed. That so I will give McConnell that before anything else. We owe him that one. Anna, now you were involved in the Trump campaign here in Massachusetts. We've talked about both sides trying to lose. Now, are both sides trying to lose, and is Trump trying to thread the needle here somehow?
I think both sides have forgotten the goal. And I don't want to call everybody out here on the table, but I say that I am my country before my party. And I think we need to change the narrative, because the only way that we're going to bring unity is if that's what we talk about, our country. Otherwise, we're doing the same thing. We're practicing identity politics. So I think that's what President Trump is doing, right? He's focusing on America. So we need to change the narrative. I feel more hopeful. See, you all have so much more experience than I have. I'm a newbie. I'm not even in this game 2 years, right? And before that, I never really paid that much attention. So in some ways, I have a blank slate, right? So I don't have any baggage to kind of attach it to. I think that, given that Trump has an R at the end of his name, even though we know he's not a conservative Republican, and I'm fine with that, I think that Republicans will end up getting elected if President Trump puts money in people's pockets, keeps people safe. So I do think that. I think we're going to see a lot of exciting things. I think this whole, DACA deal, giving them 6 months, all the stuff that he's doing, people are not, they're looking at it with feelings, how they feel about it. They're not looking at it with strategically. President Trump is the Bill Belichick of the Patriots. Like the two of those, they're the same.
Oh, after
they're the same.
the other night, that's not too good.
No, I know, but that's not what I'm saying. Listen,
For those of you who don't follow football, the Patriots were spanked
Yes.
royally this Thursday.
you can lose a battle. You can lose a battle. It's the war that's important.
And every
So-
time they've won the first game in the last 10 years, they've come back and won the Super Bowl.
So I'm not worried about that, but I do think that
Just
we're
saying.
going to see a lot of changes in the years to come. We are, and I'm confident that President Trump is the right person for the job.
Okay, Matt. Now, are they all? Let's see. So President Trump gets some applause here. Now, are they racing to the bottom to see who can alienate voters most, Republicans or Democrats? And do they see that they're doing it?
No, and yes, and maybe, and kind of in the middle here.
I'm glad to see you make a solid commitment on this one.
Well, let's start with the fact that Representative Nikki Tsongas has decided that she's going to leave. Now, I seem to recall reading in some really erudite and prescient blog
I can't imagine where.
that her retiring so suddenly from a rather cushy job that she was secure in returning to, why would she do this? Why would she not want to run again? And the reality is that it's really a lot less fun being in Washington, being part of the minority party, even if you have a secure seat, like a seat from a Democrat here in Massachusetts. This is a reality that Nikki Tsongas, who nobody, not that she's diminished, but that she's just not the sharpest political scientist that we will ever come across. She's a nice enough woman, and honestly, she tries to do a pretty decent job. But she is a person of the left and believes that more government is a solution to every single problem ever, including, not eating enough green vegetables and wearing raincoats. That she sees this and she has decided that she's going to retire is indicative of the fact that there are many, many, many Democrats who realize that they are alienating their base. I believe that it is incorrect that the circular firing squad that has always been the hallmark of the grand old party is now migrating over to the Democrat Party. I firmly believe that the Bernie bros have been activated and that we will have a serious schism in the Democrat Party between the loony leftists and the marginal leftists, because there are no longer any blue dog Democrats. Anybody who's conservative, traditional, has left and become a Republican, like, Charlie Baker. Now what we will see is these two nihilistic organizations that are married through convenience realize that they're fighting over a smaller plate of scraps, as they've been forced to ever since the rise of the Tea Party movement, and I will take all the credit that we deserve for that. That they will, honestly, that there will be a snake eating its own head, and this is going to be something that is going to be cycling through our politics for a long time. Now, the Republican phase, the Republicans have always been able to say one thing and deliver the other. Say one thing and deliver the other. But of course, Patrick made one mistake. He said free media. There's no such thing as free media. There is paid media and earned media. Donald Trump showed us how to earn media. You become the story, you create a stir, you create excitement, because of course nobody could turn it down. Not even the mainstream media could not cover Donald Trump, which is why I plan to learn from that and try to do that in my own style. I can't imitate him, but I can learn from his technique. What we need to do is remember that we can create earned media. That's what this event is trying to be an example of. We are putting forward ideas that perhaps many people have not heard. We are bringing people in from across the country. We are having an open debate. This is what America is supposed to be about. I don't think we all agree about everything. I've noticed many of you guys are not drinking Mai Tais like I am. And this is a good thing. This is the way it should be. We should be independent individuals. This is where I draw great hope from. I draw great hope from the fact that I believe and have confidence in the core of the American people. I know people from all over the world who have come here to become painters. That's my profession. I sell paint to painters. And whether you speak French from Canada, you speak you speak Portuguese from Brazil, you speak Farsi from Iran. You guys all come here, you try to raise your family, you try to do a good job, you try to be a good member of the community, and you want to be an American. You want to do that little extra to be an American, to be part of something that is greater than all of us, and we can only be together. And I firmly believe that this will win out. And while, it's a little unpleasant at the moment, we got to muck out the stables, that eventually we will get the government that we so truly deserve.
Okay, I want to brief. Oh.
Sorry, I have to say one thing.
I have to say this because this has not come up, and I'm shocked by this. We have another fight, right? We have the Islamists. Nobody talks about it. I mean, they're infiltrated in our political system. They're infiltrated in our schools, right? They're infiltrated in our government. They're everywhere. They are everywhere. And they have aligned themselves with the left. There is a video, you can Google it. I think it's from 2015. It was from, I don't know if it was at a mosque or something in Chicago. Now, for those of you who don't know, Hamas, their headquarters in the United States is Chicago.
Imagine that.
So there's no big stretch of the imagination that Rahm Emanuel is so invested in keeping, his city a sanctuary. But we don't talk about this. People are afraid to talk about this. But this is going on. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And so we really have to keep talking about that. You can't help to say, Sharia law, freedom of speech. You want to get rid of that, right? Talking about dressing, whether it's the Muslim mayor of London, who when he first got elected, right, he passed a ban on advertising. Did you know that? Yeah. He passed some ban on advertising. So all of these things are happening, but nobody talks about it. So we really have to put that piece puzzle because they are connected.
Well, there's one interesting point about Islam, and this is something I've said on the radio. John's heard me say on the radio. Pat's heard me say it before the Friday morning group, but I'm going to say it again here on that topic. In 20 years, the Democrat Party will abandon the gay lobby and will abandon the feminists. And they will abandon them for the Islamists. And the reason why they will do this is because of the ghastly Tom Hagen math. And this Tom Hagen math is what I think is our advantage at this point. And when I say Tom Hagen math, I'm presuming everyone watching this has seen The Godfather. And there's a point where Hagen is talking to Don Corleone and saying, right now we have the gamblings and the unions, and these are the best things to have. But if we don't get into on the ground floor of the drugs, they'll be able to beat us, not now, but 10 years from now. And when it comes down to it, thanks to the feminist ideology that Robert Stacy McCain so eloquently talked about today, Stacy McCain alone has more children than the authors of all of these books that are stacked here. Stacy McCain, I mean, think about this. Stacy McCain has produced more voters in 20 years than his grandchildren. He is exponentially alone. And I only have 2 children, and I have more than most of the
I think
the
my
women
wife
there.
deserves some.
Yeah, your wife deserves a lot of the credit, though.
Maybe
but
just a little.
when you look at it, when you have the abortion culture, when you have the contraceptive culture, when you have the we're not going to get married culture, when you have the we're not going to have children culture, which Stacy has made famous from his crazy cat lady starter kit images, you do not have voters. But Islam is having children. And the Democrats are doing the math, and that is why the terror attack on a gay bar became not a terror attack, because they did not want to upset Islam. And that's why even in Australia, where they're having a vote on gay marriage, Australian Muslims are silent, and they asked about the imams there, and the imam said, we don't want to upset our allies on the left. And I am predicting that in 20 years, the left is going to be embracing Islam, and because
before that, 20 years is too long. I mean, you have to.
It's going to be before that.
It's going to be before that.
Well, I'm saying 20 years because the children have to be old. Once the children are old enough to vote, they're going to need those votes.
Right, but I mean, the poop is going to hit the fan before that. That's my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of other people. You have 80% of the mosques in America are militarized. They are. They're funded by Saudi Arabia, 80%. Now, if you go and look at the numbers of mosques in America, they're going to tell you it's 3,000. If you talk to David Gobbets, he's going to tell you it's probably about 10,000. Because for every one mosque there is out there, there are 2 to 3 that aren't registered, that are just small little entities. So we saw President Trump go to Saudi Arabia, and he did lay down the hammer. But the thing is, he knows, because he's friends with Brigitte Ariel, he knows that they are already all over our country. They have been here since the 50s. They've been at this. They have a plan. So I really think that we underestimate what's going to happen with the Islamists. We really do.
Well, I think electorally, they're going to be felt the largest in the next generation, in my opinion. But I want to get back to the original topic. I want to go through the line. 2018. Who controls the House and Senate? I ask you, John Weston, who, before you answer the question, you had a comment you wanted to make. So make your comment, and then if you can answer that question.
Yeah, I just thought that when Pat brought up Bernie, I just thought that let's please have a moment of silence for Bernie, because, well, somebody's taking care of him. Because Bernie, by the way, this summer went out and bought a $1.8 million house on Lake Champlain to complement the 2 other homes that he has up there. And oh, by the way, Nikki, who we were kind of saying, she's leaving, she's now going to leave with 2 pensions. Think about that. She gets her husband's, and she's going to get hers. So why should she stay and fight at this point? I think Matt's really onto something there. Because she comes out of it with more money, more power, and free this and free that forever at this point in time. As far as who's going to win, honestly, I don't know. I go back and forth on this all the time. I certainly think the Democrats are going to do everything that they can to regain their power. I don't think the Republicans, at this point in time, show me anything that can stop them. I do think that Trump will get reelected. But the other side that I see this, the more all the things that we talked about today happen, the more the silent America, the people like me who get laid off in their 50s, who didn't have a chance because we worked 75, 80 hours a week. Matt, you and I have talked about this. And now all of a sudden, we're not working. Well, and Diana, we talked about this. Now all of a sudden, you've got the chance to pay attention. And you go like, what? I mean, because, you brought up some things we were talking about today. Because I've been going to New Hampshire to do some radio, I hear about more things in New Hampshire than I hear about Matt's. But at Matt's next meeting, which is September 19th,
correct.
I'm going to talk about Massachusetts state inspections. Okay, now you're going to think, why would he bring that up? Well, I'm just going to give you a little idea, okay? Massachusetts is going to lead the way to do everything that they can do to stop commercial business and companies who have commercial vehicles from being in Massachusetts. The font is somewhere down around 6. Tiny, tiny, tiny. I mean, you need like 500 magnifying glasses to read it. To inspect a commercial vehicle starting October 1 in this state, the sticker itself will be $70, okay, plus whatever the shop who does the inspection charges for their hourly rate, which on commercial vehicles is typically $150 an hour. Okay? Knowing vehicles the way I know, because that was my background, it's 19 pages long of things that they're going to check on a commercial vehicle. And if they do that, you're looking at having vehicles in the inspection bay for half a day. And I don't mean, you know, I mean like from 7 in the morning till lunch. Because it's at least 3.5 to 5 hours work to do one of these new commercial inspections. Okay? So now, let's say it's there 3 hours. $450 plus the 70? How many people can afford that? How many businesses are going to exit the state because of this? This is something that we really have to look at.
But will that cause the state of Massachusetts to turn out the Democrats who just voted themselves a pay raise as well?
Well, you know, again, I think that the more that gets done like this and the more things that is done to the average middle America and the middle, you know, small, medium-sized businesses, it's eventually going to wake them up and make them mad. And I think that's how Trump got elected. And so I guess my answer here is, I think there's more that they keep doing that stuff, the better chances for people who think, as we mostly do, are to get elected.
Okay, Pat.
Hang on. One of the things I wanted to mention earlier,
by the way, that's Chris Maria talking right now.
Isn't this part of the more shooting themselves in the foot? One of the things I talked about on my radio show was about the GOP, mass GOP, always shooting themselves in the foot. We have great grassroots candidate. They throw some no name in, we lose the campaign, they shoot themselves in the foot. John makes a great point. They're going to do this new taxation, this new incredibly egregious taxation. Isn't this just more of the Democrats shooting themselves in the foot? Because the Democrats themselves, who own businesses, they're going to be like, this isn't what I signed up for. This isn't what I want to be as a Democrat. They're going to leave the state. They might change party affiliation. But again, isn't this a schism that's happening within even the Democrat Party? Diana's saying no. Okay.
The thing is, here's the thing. We have to accept the fact that the Democrats and the Republicans in Massachusetts are all one party. And they play a game with us.
Right. So we must accept the absurdity in which we live.
No, we don't fight back. We don't.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We accept the absurdity in which we live. This was part of what the Soviet Union was able to do. Not their KGB, not their secret police. It was the willingness of the people to say, well, what can you do?
Because we don't change the narrative. We should be saying, on your radio show, you should be hammering it in. They're the same party. They're the same
You're in
party.
violent agreement.
But in fairness, the Republican Party is so small, even if they were the different party, it's not going to make a lot of difference in Massachusetts yet. But so back to the question, Pat.
Going back to your original question.
Who holds the House, who holds the Senate in 2018?
Going back to your original question. First, the numbers. We're in Massachusetts. We have to understand that we are an anomaly. Massachusetts, between Massachusetts, California, and New York, that's fully 1/3 of the House of Representatives, Democrat representation, and it was also, people to talk about this, it was 40% of Hillary's electoral college vote. We are an anomaly, so we don't have a good pulse on what's happening out in the rest of the country. Every 2 years, everybody in the House of Representatives is up. So I think across the country, we may be able to hold the House. Senate, the numbers. Every 2 years, 1/3 of the Senate is up. That's 33. 24 of those are Democrats this time. 10 of them are in states where Trump won. We have a good chance to maybe even pick up some seats. That is a possibility.
Despite everything.
Those are the numbers. Getting back to the reality. What happens? Trump is battling the House and the Senate to try to get something, to have some achievements to point to. there needs to be a turnaround. Why vote Republican if they're going to be doing nothing for the next 2 years, or a year and a half now? Something has to happen. The agenda has to move forward. If the agenda can move forward, if Trump, I think this DACA thing, the stent extension is a way of forcing Congress's hand. He's putting them in the hot seat. And I think if he's turned around to that point where he's saying, I'm going to have to play games with these guys and play the Democrats off of them to get deals done, to get this things moving forward. If he's successful in that and getting things through successfully, maybe repealing Obamacare, maybe getting immigration solved, even if it's a DACA, but also for strong borders and building the wall. If those things are happening and the economy is coming back, which I think being out from under the cloud of Obama's anti-business environment, having a pro-business government in there, if all those things are happening, I think we can win, and maybe win somewhat handily.
Okay, Mike Rogers.
Yeah, it's easy to be pessimistic, but as Pat says, the math is good. I think we cling to the House. We damn well ought to pick up seats in the Senate. The question is, can we? Or will the Republican Party snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, as it tries so hard to do so often? I think Trump's put him on notice that he'll work with the Democrats if he has to. He's not going to sit around and have absolutely nothing happen. And what we have to keep reminding the voters is that Trump has killed hundreds of regulations. Not only the couple of dozen bills that went through the House that rescinded Obama-era regulations that had not become concrete yet, but other little work that keeps on going on behind the scenes, letting Ajit Pai kill off net neutrality, letting Betsy DeVos clean up Title IX. All this stuff is happening. What he needs to do is unleash Tom Price and say, the Secretary may and shall dismantle Obamacare. Go to work, Tom. They can do it. The question is, will they? And today about Islam, look, it's a whole separate discussion. We didn't start down that path. Again, I think most of us are going to be in violent agreement, and the Democrats are going to have to embrace Islam because it's basically all they have. The two totalitarian ideologies will come together, and if we let them, the rest of us will lose.
All right, Stacy McCain.
Secular events beyond the control of politicians, beyond the control of the media. These things sometimes happen. Hurricanes, wars.
Patriots losing.
NBC and CNN don't get to decide whether Kim launches a nuke. The situation in Afghanistan could go sideways at any point. So these secular events that are apart from the political process and beyond the control of the media can change things. What about the commercial real estate bubble? This is something that people haven't noticed, but next time you're driving around, just notice how much commercial real estate is for rent. I've started noticing, you've seen those signs. The Amazon recession is coming, sooner or later, okay? Because more and more stuff is being sold online. There is less and less need for so much commercial real estate, commercial retail space, malls and stuff like that. We're seeing cities going bankrupt, okay, losing the tax base. I think we could see a recession between now and the next election. And if we do, it's going to be very bad for the Republicans in the House. As Mike was saying, the numbers, and you were saying, Pete, the numbers are so good for the Senate. It would really take a great effort for them, for the Senate Republicans to lose control. But I think John McCain might be up to it.
Okay, Diane.
Okay, status quo in the House and the Senate. Kid Rock gets elected.
I was born for
And I didn't finish my thought. Go to YouTube. There is a video. I think it's December 2015. And the mom is saying to the Black Lives people, their issue is our issue. So that's what I wanted to just fill in that piece of information that I left out.
But status quo, okay.
Yeah.
Matter.
We would be so lucky to have both the communists and the Islamists join forces, because they are tremendously incompetent peoples, and to have them wrap themselves together would only add more incompetence to it. So of course we would only benefit from that. Again, I'm very, very, very big on this, and I can point to a lot of reasons why that'll work out best for us. Realize that anytime we're concerned about Saudi Arabia, we've already defeated them. We invented fracking. If you don't want to fight more wars in the Middle East, hug a fracker. I believe the future of America is strong and bullish, and I challenge anyone to really, go point for point. Any other nation has any other hope compared to us, even before we get to 800 million Americans. I believe that there is a recession, but it's coming after 2018, so it won't be in this cycle, which is going to be a recession that is baked in the pie for many of the reasons that Mr. McCain, because of the changes in the economy. We're not really embracing our future. We're not embracing our technology. We're not embracing our skill set. And I believe that the secret is that we embrace the future while not degrading the past, that we bring along the guys who have not, computer skills or robotic skills or things like this, and we find a place for them in our society. We do not cast them into the waste heap like we are doing now. And when we do that, we make ourselves stronger, because honestly, we're all in this together, and that's how we're going to advance, because we have plenty of people who don't want us to.
All right, this is going to be an odd prediction on my part. The Republicans will hold the House because Nancy Pelosi has already conceded it, and the example that Matt was bringing up earlier about Nikki Tsongas is the clue. Nikki Tsongas was saying back in April, when Nancy Pelosi was predicting taking the House, Nikki Tsongas was insisting that she wasn't going anywhere. It was only after Nancy Pelosi, in a statement, talked about taking the House was not important, that Nikki Tsongas, realizing she would not be in the majority, decided that it was time to spend more time with your grandchildren, which frankly is always the right choice, because politicians come and go, but your grandchildren are the most valuable thing in the world. So she's going to be very happy with that decision, even if it was made for the wrong reasons. On the Senate side, and this is going to be an odd statement, the Republicans' own incompetence is going to cause them to win several seats. And hear me out on this. Because the Republicans failed to repeal Obamacare by one vote, because the Republicans failed to do these things, you will see that Republicans elected in Democrat states saying, all we need is one or two more, and Trump can do this. And I am predicting we're going to see at least 3 seats. And when those 3 seats are apparent, that's when we're going to find out. Because when there's those 3 extra votes, the question is, will 3 other Republicans who are now needed to stop Obamacare's repeal, who are now needed to make sure the wall is not funded, will they suddenly develop the urge to change the votes again? The question isn't whether the Republicans will win. The question is, after they have that 5-seat cushion instead of that 2-seat cushion, after they have the votes to defund Planned Parenthood, will they or will they not? Now, we're getting near the end of the time. I know you wanted to say one thing, Matt. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the last thing, and I'm going to start with you. I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves one more time to the watching audience and bring up one more point that they want to bring up. So, Matt, president of the Worcester Tea Party, introduce yourself, your group, and then tell us something that we need to know that we may not have learned.
My name is Matt O'Brien. I am president of the Worcester Tea Party. You can contact me, Matt at WorcesterTeaParty.com. That's Matt. Massively awesome, terribly tall. You should be able to remember that. We are going to be pursuing stopping the 80% tax increase that they are foisting on people here in the Commonwealth. This is an exciting project. I think it's something that is a challenge, that is something that is worthy of your time and effort. And if you want to join us, again, Matt at WorcesterTeaParty.com. Matt at WorcesterTeaParty.com.
Dianna Ploss, introductions and something we should know about that we don't.
Okay, Dianna Ploss, Dianna with 2 N's, Ploss, P-L-O-S-S. I'm with Acts for America and other projects. So if you go to my Facebook page, you can see a lot of what's happening. So it's just Dianna Ploss at Facebook. So what you don't know, I heard a rumor that I think it's Beth Lindstrom, who's supposedly running for Senate.
Yes.
I heard that there was talk that she was going to run in Nikki Songus' seat.
That is news. Now, I'm going to skip Stacy McCain because I want him to go last because he was the guest of honor. Okay? Mike Rogers.
And everybody knows Stacy anyway. Mike Rogers with Granite Grok, 32-year import, Reagan and Thatcher conservative, and simply put, he who governs least governs best. And we keep fighting to stick with the Constitution and shrink the government. It's tough.
Okay, Mike, is anything we should know about that we don't know about that Granite Grok's reporting on?
Granite Grok covers pretty much everything, political and local, in New Hampshire. We have more than a dozen writers, some more active than others. We have the state, possibly the nation's premier voter fraud activist, Ed Nail.
And there's some new news on that, too, this week.
Yes, there is new news on that, because the state actually did due diligence on some of the people who registered at the last minute, and most of them had not. In spite of declaring intent to take up domicile, registered their vehicles or got driver's licenses in New Hampshire, many of them had addresses to which mail could not be delivered, and some of them were actually proven to have voted in 2 states.
And that was 2 times the number of people that was found was 2 times the difference between Trump winning and Trump losing that state, and was more than enough that would have flipped Kelly Ayotte.
In spite of her best efforts to lose, yes. But the important thing to note is these are the ones that the state was able to easily prove and was too embarrassed to try and cover up. We think the number is 5 to 10 times that bad.
And Ed Nagel, by the way, if you do not read Ed Nagel at Granite Grok,
N-A-I-L-E.
N-A-I-L-E, I'm sorry. If you don't read him on voter fraud, do so, because if he is the driving force that's going to prove a lot of what's going on. Patrick, tell us about you and something we should know.
Patrick Humphreys, Greater Boston Tea Party. We're Greater Boston Tea Party on Facebook, and you can see me on Facebook as well, Patrick Humphreys. We do have an event coming up on Tuesday the 12th, at the Lear Restaurant in Boston. We're going to have Lauren Stivac talking there, and I will be talking myself about my experiences on the Boston Common, the free speech rally. 1 or 2 interesting factoids on the Senate race. Actually ran into somebody from Winthrop, John Kingston's hometown. The people in the Republican Town Committee in, Winthrop, a place in Winthrop, would be very happy to meet him at some point. I just find it interesting that a gentleman running for the state, for the Senate in Massachusetts, isn't known by his own hometown Republican committee.
Okay, John Weston.
John Weston. Done a lot of different things, a lot of different places, and things like that. Basically, my motto is, it's not about me, it's about we. And that's why I do what I do, and I've done what I've done. And we'll continue to do those things. I would ask you to come 2 Tuesdays, to Matt's meeting. And where is it going to be, Matt? At Eller's
Restaurant.
On Route 9 in Leicester. Yes.
Very good food at Ellis, by the way.
Yes, because I'm going to, 1, talk about that state inspection. 2, I'm going to give you a preview. Does anybody remember about Patrick talking about a tax of a penny per mile added to your inspection sticker, and then it went away? It's back. Just want to tell you that. So, we have that, and, Casey, I actually want to mention one little thing to you. When you mentioned about a lot of commercial property being available, I would say still available, even with what has happened. That's the reason that when I talked about these inspection things and these things going on, it's going to affect the small and medium-sized businesses, not the big businesses, because the big businesses, at the end of their lease, they move from Worcester to Thompson, Connecticut. They move 13 miles down the road, they're in a different state, they don't have to put up with the nonsense, and they now don't have to go out and hire Class 1 drivers to spend their whole time taking their vehicles to get inspections.
Okay, I'm going to go next. I'm going to finish with Stacy. But no, Stacy, we'll do you next. You're the guest of honor. I'm going to sit for a second. I'm an old man and I need to sit. Stacy,
I know how you feel. My name is Robert Stacy McCain. I blog regularly at The Other McCain. I'm a contributor, and that's theothermccain.com. I am a contributor to The American Spectator, spectator.org. You can find me at Patriarch Tree on Medium.com. My book is Sex Trouble, Radical Feminism and the War Against Human Nature.
Okay, and I'm Pete the Tech Guy. Half the door will travel, although I didn't have to travel very far. The blog is DaTechGuyBlog.com, DaTechGuy blog.com. My writers are my magnificent 7 writers. We've got a dozen writers from, actually 14 writers from 10 states who write on a daily, each one writes once a week, some write twice a month on all sorts of different topics. You can also find me on Catholic radio. My radio show is Your Prayer Intentions, Saturdays noon to 12:25 on WQPH 89.3 Shirley Fitchburg, and my book is Hail Mary, the Perfect Protestant and Catholic Prayer. And I want to thank all of the panel who came in. I want to thank the people from the Worcester Tea Party. I want to thank the people who stayed to the end, and all of you who have been watching online. And hopefully we'll be doing this again very, very soon. Well, very soon, in a couple of months, maybe 3, maybe 6, depending on how this all comes out. But I do want to, again, thank you, Stacy McCain, for coming down. And, John, you wanted something you wanted to say?
We should thank the people.
Yeah.
The local restaurant.
Yes, Penn Dynasty Restaurant. And if the speeches did not get you here, the food would. The food, everyone loved the food. Thank you again very much.
Grok TV.